Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought the Kremlin into a new conflict, an economic war between the United States and Western allies. From a ban on U.S. imports of Russian oil and gas to sanctions targeting the allies and oligarchs supporting President Vladimir Putin, Russia's economy is getting hit hard. How are these economic punishments playing out in Western countries, and what's behind Russia's concentration of wealth? Joining us now with more are Andreas Hauskrecht, clinical professor of business economics at Indiana University, and Jeffrey Winters, a political science professor at Northwestern University, specializing in the study of oligarchs. Thanks to you both for joining us. Andreas Hauskrecht, let's start with you, please. How would you characterize the depth and the severity of the U.S. sanctions against Russia?
I think that the Russian government was extremely surprised about the well-organized response of all Western countries. It's not only the United States, it's also the European countries. The sanctions are very well designed. They have short-term effect and they have long-term effect. They have taken away basically the central bank reserves of Russia. The central bank of Russia doesn't have the means anymore to defend its exchange rate. The fiscal policy in Russia doesn't have the means to stimulate the economy. And so there are already now very significant effects for the Russian economy. The exchange rate is basically out of control with significant welfare costs for everyone in Russia. We also see that the banks are excluded from the worldwide payment system called SWIFT, which makes any form of international trade very, very difficult for Russia, also international capital flow. And so what we see here, I leave the punishment of individuals, of oligarchs, which is also part of the punishment, I leave that to Jeffrey. But
well, Jeffrey Winters, I do want to ask you, because as we just heard, among the sanctions aimed at Russia are those targeting the oligarchs. First, what are Russian oligarchs, and what are these sanctions doing to them in particular?
Thank you, Brandis. First of all, oligarchs, which is a word that's getting used an awful lot right now with regard to Russia, is a very ancient word, goes all the way back to Rome and Athens, and what it refers to is people who are super powerful because they are super wealthy. And so Russia has oligarchs, the United States also has oligarchs, countries all over the world have them. They use wealth power to influence politics, whether those politics are democratic or whether they're authoritarian, as in the case of Putin. And so after the fall of the Soviet Union, when there actually weren't any oligarchs in the Soviet Union, when Russia basically was restarted, very quickly, a group of oligarchs arose by seizing and grabbing and manipulating state assets, big corporations, gas among them, oil. And this group of people emerged as being tremendously powerful. And one of the things that Russia has struggled with ever since the rise of these new oligarchs is whether they can tame them or not. And so rule of law is not very strong in Russia. And so Putin himself, who is the biggest oligarch of all in Russia, has a carrot and stick relationship with these very powerful people. Being close to Putin matters a lot for having opportunities and having protection. But also, you can be very selectively targeted. So that's the game that is going on.
As some of these oligarchs have, it seems. So, Andreas, we know that stocks are slumping today with the S&P 500 on pace for its fifth drop in 6 days and consumer prices rising. Is the U.S. economy already feeling the impact of what some call this economic war against Russia?
Yes and no. There is an economic war. Let me put this into perspective. The U.S. economy has a size of $23 trillion a year. Russia has a size of $1.5 trillion a year, now with the depreciation close to $1 trillion. The Russian economy is smaller than the Canadian economy. It's smaller than the South Korean economy. By using those sanctions, the West has the ability to bring the Russian economy to a halt, to a stop. And this is very effective. The effects for the United States economy are limited. I looked up, Russia is the 30th biggest trading partner with the United States. What we import from Russia is mainly minerals, oil, and gasoline. But we are exporting to Russia planes, cars, vehicles, chips. So experts are guessing that within the next 6 months, because most of Russia's planes are from Boeing and Airbus, 60% of the entire Russian fleet will be grounded because there's no services and there is no spare parts available. For the United States, yes, we see the stock market, but the stock market needed a correction. I see the Russian prices more as the spark of a needed stock market correction anyway.
And before, I want to get Jeffrey Winters back in here because, you know, Russian oligarchs, we've talked about them a bit. How do they factor into the country's economy? Could they shift the dynamic in this conflict?
I would actually say that their biggest impact is political. So, I mean, it's economic, but it's really political. Oligarchs have individually the power and the influence of millions of people combined. And so if these sanctions really hurt the oligarchs who are around Putin, it places tremendous pressure on him. If they become alarmed and alienated, and if they see this attack on Ukraine as really damaging them, if they turn en masse against Putin, that complicates his situation politically a great deal. And these sanctions, which are, as Andreas said, they are actually not just directed at the country and the economy, they are directed specifically at the oligarchs with that very intention in mind. The idea is to separate Putin from the oligarchs, put pressure on them, so they in turn put massive pressure on him.
Okay, so obviously a lot to watch going forward economically in Russia in particular. My thanks to our guests, Andreas Hauskrecht and Jeffrey Winters, for joining us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.